What's up, y'all? This is Carter Karels with GigEm 247 here at Kyle Field after a 42-24 win for Texas A&M to open the season, bringing back the walk and talk this year. And to really sum up this game, I feel like it was mostly what we anticipated what this game would look like. I predicted 41-17, garbage time touchdown. I almost looked really smart. I was really close to looking smart, but nope, still not looking smart. So 42-24, to sum it up, offense looked pretty good. Passing game looked pretty good. Run defense, kind of shaky. Running game, kind of shaky. And I think outside of the running game piece, about what we expected, right? I think there were a lot of questions with this defense going into the season, whereas you looked at the offense and you said, man, there are so many reasons to feel optimistic with bringing back your top 7 offensive linemen, bringing back your top 4 running backs and Le'Veon Moss, and then adding what they added at wide receiver. And man, again, you have to have it in mind that, okay, they're playing UTSA, right? They're going to be playing better teams, coming up in the season. But Mario Craver and KC Concepcion, those were the two standout performers you got to talk about tonight, because, man, they brought this offense something that they did not have last year. The spacing looked different. The separation looked different. Marcel Reed made a lot of great decisions tonight, had a nice game for the most part, but he really didn't even have to do anything that special. He just got it to those guys and let them make plays. And again, I think that's why there was so much confidence in this offense was, hey, it's not like Marcel Reed needs to make all these heroic plays like maybe he needed to last year when there wasn't as much separation and you didn't have Le'Veon Moss down the stretch. This time, hey, let's just swing it to Mario Craver and let him cook. Let's just give it on a slant to KC Concepcion and let him cook. And that's about what he did tonight. Certainly made some good throws, made some good decisions, but man, those two into space. And you also got to talk about the blocking that you saw from Terry Bussey and Ashton Bethel-Roman. I'm thinking about that 24-yard touchdown that Mario Craver had where he gets a pass and it's those two guys blocking up front and they're just dominating guys down the field. And again, it's just something that this offense didn't really have last year, where you could give it to a guy, short, easy pass, and then watch him go 30 yards. So again, it's UTSA. They're going to be better secondaries. There's going to be better defenses. That was a defense that replaced all of their starters from last season. But again, just your eyeballs tell you this looks different. And we knew that these guys were going to be good because they were proven Power 4 starters at NC State and Mississippi State. So it's not like this is, the New Mexico situation from a couple years ago where you're thinking, oh, wow, they look pretty good offensively. And then, rest of the season, it's not quite as sharp. I think as far as the running game goes, certainly not great. Had about 100 yards. But I'm going to wait before I give a big judgment on it. It was very clear from the jump that they're really trying to bring along Le'Veon Moss slowly. This is a kid who had a torn ACL and a torn MCL last November 2nd. And here we are, can't do math, but about 10 months later. That's a pretty significant injury to come back from. Didn't really do a whole lot during camp, didn't scrimmage, didn't get tackled. And so I think they wanted to bring him back slowly, and you saw it. He had 3 carries tonight. He didn't have his first carry until about midway through the second quarter. And, the running game just wasn't really a focal point. They were throwing it a lot more. Marcel Reed, it wasn't like he had a bunch of designed runs. And it was a lot more Ruben Owens than, Le'Veon Moss. But even still, there just wasn't a lot going for this running game. And I think part of it too is they had a lot more to do in the passing game. They had a lot more open in the passing game. That was something we talked to Marcel Reed and Mike Elko about after the game, where they said, hey, their game plan was a lot different than what they expected, and they kind of had to tweak the game plan on the fly, get it to their guys in space more, and just kind of focus on what they were doing in the passing game and somewhat abandon the running game. I think it's fair to say, hey, all this talk about the offensive line and, hey, could they win the Joe Moore Award? Early on, it didn't look amazing. It didn't look like, wow, this is some dominant offensive line. But I felt like they were a lot better as the game progressed. I felt like their pass protection was pretty good as the game progressed. They didn't give up a sack today. And so, again, I think it's probably an overreaction to just say, well, this offensive line, this running game, not what it's pinned out to be. Let's give them a couple games. Let's let Moss come back. Obviously, we saw a 30-yard run from Ruben Owens tonight. That was encouraging. But certainly want to see that running game progress next week, because after that, you're going at Notre Dame in a couple weeks. And really, I would say, flipping it over to the defense, the most concerning thing about this game, without a doubt, has got to be what we saw from this run defense. They gave up over 200 yards, and they almost gave up 200 yards alone to UTSA running back Robert Henry. And he was looking like Derrick Henry tonight at times, making guys miss, breaking tackles. And this run defense, it wasn't just like one position or one player making a mistake. It was all around. I mean, you look at the 75-yard run that Henry had to begin the second half. York kind of takes the wrong angle, kind of whiffs on the tackle at the line of scrimmage. Then he gets in the open space and jukes out Bryce Anderson. This is kind of like, it's like a multi-level, whiff for this defense. It's not one guy, it's not one position. And that's the concern I have, is it just felt like, whether it was misfitting the running, the run fit, whether it was missing the tackle in the open space, whether it was taking the bad angle, the issues were all around. And I think he had about 170 rushing yards early to midway in the third quarter. And all you could think the whole time was, if Robert Henry could do this, then Jeremiah Love, they might give him the Heisman Trophy 2 weeks from now, because he's going to have 500 rushing yards against this defense. But what I will commend this defense for was, hey, they really stepped it up. Outside of the garbage time touchdown at the very end, the starting defense really stepped it up after that opening rushing touchdown to start the second half. I think the next 16 plays after that, they only gave up like 9 yards. Ryland Kennedy had a big sack. There were some big plays being made. Scooby Williams had a nice play. And so it was one of those deals where, okay, you like the progress, but let's see it again next week, because you just think about Jeremiah Love and that Notre Dame rushing attack, and you say, okay, a little scary. And they've got a really good offensive line up there at Notre Dame as well. So it's something that needs to be cleaned up. I asked Mike Elko about it after the game. He and Torian York kind of talked about misfitting things and playing things wrong. We'll see if it gets cleaned up. It was a big problem last season, though. And after losing their top 3 defensive linemen to the draft, going into this season, you just felt like, man, they really have something to prove in this regard. No one's questioning Torian York or Scooby Williams, but when they don't have the protection up front, when they don't have, the dominant defensive linemen, they can't make every play in space. Bryce Anderson can't make every play in space. When you got a guy one-on-one in space, it's hard to always tackle him. So, this front's got to do a better job, but those guys also got to do a better job too, taking the proper angles, making those tackles when they're found in space. I think the encouraging thing with the defense outside of, hey, it really clicked in the second half was, hey, the secondary really wasn't that bad. That was a huge concern coming off of last season. You remember the Las Vegas Bowl where Mike Elko just kind of goes off. He's like, man, we can't play zone coverage. We don't know what we're doing. What's going on? And they end up cleaning that up. They had talked about Des Ricks kind of being a guy who ascended in preseason camp, started tonight, made a nice pass breakup, and really brought back that entire back seven. I think was a huge piece from a continuity perspective. And also, hey, you got a second team All-SEC corner and Will Lee. You've got a guy like Tyreek Chappelle coming back from injury and starting at nickel. It was one of those things where, the names didn't exactly change, but having so much experience and continuity back there helped with the communication. It's not year one anymore, learning a new defense sort of thing. And, we're going to see. I mean, it's one thing to do it against UTSA, and especially when UTSA is running the ball as well as they did, they don't have to be throwing it. They didn't have to test these cornerbacks and this secondary as much. So can't really make a huge judgment there. I'm just going to say, hey, it wasn't like guys were getting open a lot like they did last season. It wasn't like there was a lot of communication issues and coverage busts like there were last season. And it was encouraging, but we'll see how it goes. As far as the special teams go, I think that's another thing that really stood out tonight. You almost never talk about the special teams unless it's really bad, but tonight it was very strong. And it was something that Mike Elko has talked about this offseason. He kind of talked about it as if they found out this secret formula for the return game where they could really bring some juice there. And, they added some guys from the portal, obviously, that'd be part of that, like Casey Concepcion. But even just the blocking on the returns tonight really stood out. But, obviously have to talk about the Casey Concepcion punt return. I felt like, you go through these first couple drives, they have a 4-and-out to start the game. They had the Reed Adams penalty that kind of negated that first drive and led to a 4-and-out. Then they have a 3-and-out, and you're thinking, man, this offense doesn't look too good right now. They can't run, or they're not really running the ball, and they're not really doing that much in the passing game. Then Casey Concepcion takes it 80 yards to the house, and then this offense really starts to get rolling after that. Casey Concepcion, when you get that guy in space, same thing with Mario Craver. They make plays. They make people miss. When they get to the corner, they're gone in a hurry. And on the special teams tonight, you just really saw a huge difference when it came to that return game. Also interesting that Jared Zirkle was out there as the kicker. We talked with Elko about it. He said he actually overtook Randy Bond this offseason and won that job by a significant margin, is what he said. And I remember watching him in preseason camp. The guy has a huge leg. I watched him make a 55-yard field goal. In high school, as a junior in high school, he made a 59-yard field goal. So this is a guy that has a monster leg. The question was always sort of consistency and accuracy. He had always been kind of a kickoff guy, but had never really been that field goal kicker. Came from Georgia a couple years ago, and here he is winning the job. And with that kind of leg, it makes it intriguing. Didn't see him kick any field goals tonight, but I want to see, see if he can hit those kind of field goals, because it adds another dynamic to this offense. I feel like I haven't talked about Marcel Reed enough. I think he was 22 of 34 for 289, 4 touchdowns, 8 runs, 39 yards. Pretty good night. He had the huge miss, and that can't go untalked about, right? Had Casey Concepcion so wide open I remember looking and thinking, what the heck just happened? Did every player on UTSA just fall asleep? Because there's nobody within a 30-mile radius of this guy. And all you had to do was a layup. All you had to do was just lay it up to him. And Marcel Reed misses him, overthrows him. I think he said after the game, really regretted it. Felt like he was a little juiced up. Felt like maybe the wind affected it. But that's a throw you got to make. But to his credit, again, I think he did a really nice job of just getting the ball to his playmakers, making the right decisions, making timely decisions. That was a big difference I saw with this offense. That, like, you watched this offense last year, and it felt like it really took a while to get this passing game going, that guys just weren't getting open. It would lead to some sacks. It would lead to forcing some decisions that weren't exactly there. He just seemed so comfortable tonight, and it seemed like the anticipation was so much better. Just seemed like, oh, boom, here's Concepcion. Oh, boom, here's Craver. Ooh, ABR right there. And he even said tonight there was one time, I think he said it was a drag route to KC, where he didn't even know he was there. He just threw it, and it was because he anticipated him to be there. And what do you know? It leads to a big play. And so that's going to be something to watch going forward. But I really like what I saw from this offense, from that passing game perspective. I'm about all talked out, guys. Happy that football's back. We'll be here next week for Utah State. And then a couple weeks from now, it'll be Notre Dame. So that's about it, guys. Appreciate y'all watching, and see y'all next Saturday.